Sure. So the chapter is inspired really by my journey in some aspects, and that's really how I write. It's very writing for me is very personal. It's professional as well. But this particular day, I think I was probably working on my dissertation at the time, and I went for a walk to take my son. He was 4 years old at the time. I took him to the playground, just wanted a little break. You know how it goes when you're writing; you need a little break. And so I was pushing him around the playground area, and I encountered two African American ladies who were sitting on a bench. I'm friendly. I'm from Bermuda. We're friendly people. So I said, "Hey, how you doing?" or whatever. And so they smiled and said hello. And as I circled, I came back around, and I think they asked me his name, and I said his name is Essien. Essien, you're into soccer. Michael Essien is a soccer player, and it's an African name. He's actually from Ghana. Essien is Michael Essien. That is.
Yeah.
And so she said, "Oh, okay, Essien. That's interesting." I think she may have heard my accent. She said, "So, are you African?" And so I thought, I didn't really think much. I just said, well, no, I'm not African. And then I continued my walk around the playground, and I was reflecting as I walked because I'm thinking, well, I am African. I'm African, of African descent, and I'm thinking of my work that I do with race and identity, and I'm thinking, I am African, and aren't they? And so the next time around, I said, well, so she asked me another question. So I think I actually said, no, I am African. And she said, oh, okay, well, and I said, aren't you? And she said, no, we're not African. She said, well, you must be because you have an accent. I thought, okay. So I walk around again. This is dialogue that's going on in my mind in addition to the them. So I said, well, aren't you African the next time around? She says, well, no, we're not African. We're from the East Coast. We can't be African. I'm thinking, but you're African American.
Right.
And then she sort of try to make a little joke about about your accent and whatever. But I was perplexed by the encounter because it made me realize just the complicated nature of identity. That here you had two women of African descent, they were African American, and yet I could tell that they had not fully accounted for what it means to be both African and American. And
right.
But in truth, I was still processing and continue to process what it means to be both African and Bermudian, as well as African and American, because I also have African American lineage. So the piece was sort of birthed out of that, in addition to what I do as a teacher in the classroom. And so it just that experience helped to crystallize some things, and from there I just articulated it a bit further. Another one is that I talk about accents as teachable terrain. I know you have a wonderful British accent, and as a Bermudian, we have an interesting sort of amalgamation of British, American, Caribbean, African, and so we talk about that. I talk about to my students how I'm treated differently if I bring out my North Carolina address and I think I'm Ty from Fayetteville or from High Point, right?
Right.
Than if I'm Ty from Bermuda. I've been treated differently by police officers. I've been treated differently in various contexts depending on which license I use. When I use my North Carolina license, you're just an African American. When they hear a Bermudian accent, or when I talk about my Bermudian identity, it's different. The conversations shift to, my in-laws. That's where they went to Bermuda for the honeymoon. Oh, it was so beautiful, the pink sand, and it's a totally different conversation that has problematic dynamics at the root of it. My Bermudian accent sounds more British, sounds more European, sounds more white, as relates to just ideologically, so it's and historically there were pieces there. I sound less African than perhaps my Jamaican brothers or someone from Bahamas. So there are some parts that have to be teased out. So when I'm talking about using my identity, I get right in that and I say, listen, I know I have a certain amount of privilege because of this accent, but it's a problematic privilege because I'm no better than my African or my brothers and sisters from other places across the diaspora, and so we talk about that, and I use my accent as a piece that I can use to help me to challenge some of those dynamics. I would be more nervous about not bringing yourself into the classroom. I think if you have just a shift, an ideological shift to recognize that you have a unique set of skills and experiences that no one can take from you, I think it allows you to identify your epistemological underpinnings and to be clear about it, to say this is who I am right now as far as how I understand myself. This is where I am, and this is where I'm coming from. And I respect where you're coming from, and I look forward to seeing how where you're coming from interacts with where I come from, and even the differences. But I think sometimes we can become paralyzed as educators, especially around tough topics.
Definitely.
You know, when we start talking about race and class and gender and sexuality, you know, sometimes, you know, you're trying to be politically correct, you're trying to be respectful of difference, you're trying to be maybe respectful of a particular religious or other commitments. It becomes this tightrope where you can't even really say what you need to say or even get folks to think about what they need to think about. And so I think it's important to be able to be honest, to say this is who I am, this is where I am, this is where I come from, and then we can all be on the same page, and you can utilize your experiences and your identity for the betterment of all. And I think everybody can do that, and that's important.